Hello, good evening. I'm Dr. Janice Morrow with American Mood Swings, and tonight we have Dr. Fareed Banimad from the American Addiction Institute of Mind Medicine here in Irvine, California. So he is an addiction specialist and he has a background in ER medicine, and we're very grateful that he's here tonight. Let's talk about like the withdrawal timeline and acute and chronic, and how you're going to tackle that. Like, how long should people expect for when they're first getting off of the opiates? Or yeah, you talk about the difference between the acute phase, chronic phase, and then there's a show on television called Dopesick. If you could explain that term and what that means with respect to withdrawal.
I mean, acute withdrawal, again, give or take, plus or minus, and fentanyls have added a new twist to it, in addition to the fact that people aren't realizing they're mixing their drugs. So withdrawals are slightly off the usual timelines, but a couple of weeks is what they usually define as acute withdrawals, right? First day or so, you'll see a person severely sweating, nausea, vomiting, body aches, sleeplessness, restlessness, anxiety, insomnia. It would be like the worst
flu they've ever had.
Yeah, and you know, somebody, once I said that, then not a patient, but a user got extremely offended. They're like, dude, you're going to call this a flu? I was like,
no,
sorry.
But, most people have had the flu, and I've been told, and you know, like, think of it as the worst flu that you've ever had in your life, where you're flat on your back, you can't get up.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, yeah, that's
and every day feels like that when you're withdrawing.
Yeah, there's this thing that's called PAWS, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, and for people it's a little bit mysterious, and it's the psychological long-term withdrawals that goes on for months. This is where I have, number one, during the initial withdrawal stage, the acute withdrawal is a high risk relapse time, right? Because it sucks coming off of this drug. Your body's screaming, get me back to my normal homeostatic baseline. I need those receptors filled. I think where people miss the point is in PAWS, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, which is long-term withdrawals. 4 months later, 5 months later, 6 months later, 7 months later. In fact, a study back in the 70s looked and saw that there was basic physiological things that they were measuring: heart rate, blood pressure, cortisol level. These things were still elevated 7 months out, which really means 7 months out this person was still going through withdrawals. That being said, so many relapses happen during that time, and all of this can be mitigated if people were put on medication-assisted replacement treatment. And over the years, I have really been able to see this. With some of the people, they're just white-knuckling it and pretending, right? It's 4 months out. You know, they have this white plastic smile on their face, and they're extremely rigid. They've sort of gotten into this recovery community, which they traded one subculture for another, right? If you see it, especially in Orange County, everyone has to go to the gym, everyone has to wear a certain hat. It's really silly. But you start to unmask the underlying anxiety, the underlying depression, the underlying lack of self-worth, meaning, and how to cope with the world. And they still, and this might seem a little controversial to American public, they also need to be reevaluated and put on replacement medication, which was traditionally methadone, and now we also have buprenorphine products.